All right, everyone. Today we're gonna talk about children and deportation, how that affects them in the child welfare system. Why should we care about this subject? The reason the subject interested me is that number of children that are citizens with at least one parent that's not documented is about 4.5 million. And we have ethnic minorities are slowly becoming the majority group in the United States, and Latino are amongst the fastest growing population within the nation. Um, of that immigrant population, 80% of children are United States citizens, with the majority of immigrant population being of Hispanic origin. And so what does that mean to us? If the population is growing and they're slowly going to be the majority, we need to understand how deportation affects these children because they are citizens. And although their parents have made a decision that they have no control over, these are still American citizens that need to be taken care of because healthcare professionals will end up reaping the repercussions. The legal system will end up reaping the repercussions, as well as the other socioeconomic factors that having to be taken into consideration. So, in terms of our specific study, we're going to focus on the Waco, Texas group. The reason we're focusing on that group is because I work for Child Protective Services there, and I've been receiving quite a few cases that have to do with parents being deported or or being alleged for neglectful supervision because they're detained in the process of being deported, and their children have been left without family members or the appropriate care that they're going to need to set in place. So I ran into a lot of barriers because of policies that aren't very clear on how to deal with children with immigrant parents, even in the community, it's a very gray line when it comes to immigration, especially with the national headlines that have been made regarding immigration. So in the Waco, Texas area, we have about 138,000 citizens that reside in Waco. Children from ages 0 to 18 make up roughly 31% of the population, which is more than a quarter. And 32% of the population identifies Hispanic or Latino. Again, relating to the previous statement that we've made that the Hispanic population is rising. And although not all Hispanics are immigrants, of course, some of them are, and some of them experience that. And so roughly 20% of the population doesn't have health insurance, and almost 27% of the population will be considered to be living in poverty. This is just a little bit of information about the general population as a whole. As I said before, we're going to focus on the target population, which is immigrant parents of citizen children. And so a few facts here. Immigrant parents don't sign up sometimes for health care benefits for their children because they don't know it's available to them. They don't know what they can and cannot sign up for. And a lot of them are at risk of being underpaid and used for cheap labor because they're afraid of being found out. There's a fear and stigma associated with people knowing their legal status. And so many professionals actually can exploit immigrants and have done so in terms of legal representation. I ran into some parents on my workload that I tried to help them out in regards of getting legal representation, and they're like, I don't trust lawyers. One just, scammed us of thousands of dollars, which we already don't have. They're working minimum wage jobs, 2 or 3 jobs, only to find out that they trust this professional and they've been taken advantage of completely. So we're going to study what is exactly the problem. What is it that we're assessing here? And so, again, like I said, the child welfare system in Waco, there's cases that have come in due to neglect, parents being at risk of deportation, or they're being detained for a petty crime. The kids of those parents are left subject to the foster care system if there's legal intervention, because the parents have a small support system sometimes, not all of them, but it leaves the children subject to the welfare system or older siblings to take care of their children. Some of them are like barely 18, 19 years old that get left with the responsibility of taking care of the younger siblings. So what are the values in the society that contribute to this? Well, there's local and federal policies that are not made with children's best interests in mind. Again, the focus is more on like immigration, the tough, law on immigration, and many people like why they think. Why did they come here to the United States? You know, if they're going to face such hardships, and children are left with their voices unheard because the focus is so much on the immigration factor. We don't realize that a lot of these families actually have children that are citizens. Parents are not given the proper representation of the legal system. It leaves their fate in the public defenders, and we all know that they're overworked and sometimes underpaid, and so they're left to the plea bargaining system. Sometimes immigrant families or the parents that are being detained aren't given legal representation that speak their language. There was a case that I had where a mom was had a 17-year-old son. She and her son, she was leaving in a domestic violence relationship. He decided that he wanted to call the police on her and plant some fake IDs on them, and her 17-year-old son got detained, and so her 14-year-old daughter got left on the streets. They have absolutely no family here. And when I visited the 17-year-old son in jail, they had him in isolation. They both gave me the same story, that the guy planted fake IDs on them. And when I asked the 17-year-old, hey, do you have a lawyer? What have they told you? He sat and told me that he did get a lawyer, but he didn't understand the lawyer. He asked to get a Spanish lawyer, and they never gave him one. And so he had no idea what was going on with his case. Which was very difficult. And thank God that I was able to contact the mom, and the mom knew who the name of the lawyer was, and I was able to get some information and help them out in that aspect. Another factor is not just legal, but families have little support and can't meet certain psychological and emotional needs. I had another family, four children that were citizens. Uh, Dad just got deported because he had a domestic violence incident with their mother last year. The mother had to pick up 2 to 3 jobs, working minimum wage, just to take care of the children. And the little younger two children are about 5 and 8 years old, were having a lot of behavioral problems in school, and the teachers were wondering, well, what's going on with these kids? They weren't like this before, and because mom had 2 jobs, was working so many hours, she didn't have enough time to take off work and recognize that these were behavioral problems that stemmed from deportation. And so then you have mom who's overworked, underpaid, living, trying to take care of 4 children, getting asked to do all these things at school that aren't realistic of her. Um, and she had social factors that contribute to that, in aspects of that she didn't have that much family around her to be able to take care of her kids. So she didn't have much support. So she was doing everything by herself. So it leaves the kids psychologically impacted. There's economic hardship. Sometimes children end up having to do school, and perhaps graduate earlier, leave school to be able to support their family financially. So what's the problem? Why isn't there a lot of attention drawn to it? Immigrants are not the majority. It's a smaller population, so and the attention that we have in the media is that they're criminals. They don't do what they need to do in society. They're taking our jobs. But immigrants should go back where they came from. Most people don't think about the repercussions of what's happening with the children. The focus is drawn to the parents, their inability to make the proper choice, or their inability to recognize consequences for their actions, to come here to have a better life. So children are left with their voices silenced when they have their parents deported or detained. So some of the strengths that we have in the Waco area is that there's the Hispanic Council. Some of the councils attend governmental meetings to attempt to change policies in schools and some legislative laws. So they really pay attention to what's going on with the Hispanic community and immigrations. There's local churches that have teamed up with different organizations that will provide sanctuary and other reliefs for families that are going to detention or deportation. They're able to provide these things for those families, should they lose their homes, or provide sanctuary for the children as well if the parents are being deported. The Clara Center is another great resource that tends to the mental health needs of the children, regardless of their status, their legal standings, or their parents' legal standing. And there's Caritas is a good place to where families can get clothing and food for a lower cost. Again, irrespective of their status as immigrants or citizens. So we're going to look at two other nonprofit organizations that help address the needs of these immigrant families. Waco Immigration Alliance. Their mission is to serve all those who are immigrants. They advocate for them. They seek to provide more knowledge to the community regarding equal rights for them. Some of the services they offer is educational pamphlets. They talk a lot at schools because most of the time children come out with their legal standings to their teachers, and they open up to them. So they address how to handle that. They help immigrants understand their rights should ICE come and raid their homes, what they can and can't say, irrespective of their citizenship status as well. There's just certain rights that every person that lives in America has. They advocate for them. There's been people that have been left in jails where their detention dates gets postponed for years, and so they advocate for those people. And they even actually had a local jail, closed down because they were not treating immigrants correctly. And there were some things going on as well. They also talk about health insurance. Another big issue is that, again, parents don't know that their children are able to have health insurance because they're citizens, but the parents are not aware of that. So they teach them how to sign up for insurance for their kids. And again, the sanctuary network that I was talking about with the churches and local families to help sponsor these families. The only problem with the Waco Immigration Alliance is the accessibility. So a lot of it's word of mouth. They try to protect the identities of all those who they serve. They're nonprofits, so they don't have a lot of advertisement or money to be able to hire that many employees to serve a bigger population. So they carry a smaller caseload. Another community resource was American Gateways. Their mission is more in terms of legal standings and to make sure that all immigrants have the dignity to be treated correctly, saving them from torture, conflict, human trafficking, and they give them legal services at little to no cost. So a great thing is that they serve over 20,000 families a year. Although they're a nonprofit, they're over the Central Texas area. They have great accessibility. The only problem here is that they have high workloads, longer wait times because it's little to no cost. They have to refer them to other lawyers in the community that they've built good relationships with, and they service in multiple languages, which is another great thing. So both of these nonprofits address a lot of the legal, the social, their rights, their mental health, and some of the repercussions that come with their parents being detained, so like loss of a home. Um, American Gateways, like I stated, they have offer more legal services, and so they help families get green cards, work visas. I even had a child that got a lawyer. I was able to get her a lawyer to get adopted because her mom was being detained, and I had to sit and convince the mother, and it was so sad to watch a 14-year-old tell her mom that, mom, I'm going to get you back here. I love you, and I don't want to do this, but I have a better life here, so please, can you let them adopt me? And so she was able to get a lawyer to represent her and do her paperwork to become adopted. But she had to understand the consequences that she could not bring her mother over when she was older, and it was really sad to see that the best option this mother had to protect her child was to give her away. We have Waco Immigration Alliance. They provide education, advocacy. Again, they fought for jails to be shut down. They give the government a hard time. They provide shelters. So, and this Waco Immigration Alliance actually helped that 14-year-old child be able to get the healthcare services that she needed. She got an infection one day and she was not able to get seen by any doctor locally, and they were able to get a doctor that would be able to service this child at no cost, which is really good. The only negative about these is, of course, they're both subject to local laws, policies, and federal laws that uphold the majority value of how immigrants' families should be treated, regardless if they have children who are citizens. So there's not much that can be done about that. So in terms of advocacy, is it enough? I don't think it will ever be enough. I don't think these families will ever be serviced to the point where they can be healthy, like the normal American family with citizenship and access to healthcare. And even the normal American has problems with accessing healthcare, certain education benefits. But there's small progression being made because of the attention drawn to how immigrants are being treated, especially at the border. But what they don't understand, again, is that these parents have children that are citizens. And so, what are we doing to take care of the children that are citizens that are being affected or growing up to have mental health needs and other social problems because of this factor? Um, there's not much that can be done right now, but there is some steps that are being taken forward. So the justice system needs reformation to address their needs, and children are being done a huge disservice when their parents are being deported. They have nowhere to go, and they're already in the heavy laden foster care system, which we all know that is never a good thing for a child to be taken away from that support of their family. Um, so what do we need to do? I think that within CPS, we do accommodate families in terms of giving them an ad litem or providing services in their language, but there needs to be intentional efforts to partner with local resources. So we have certain liaisons in CPS, educational liaison, doctors and nurses for different regions, but there isn't immigration specialist. There isn't, and these are children that we serve that have parents who are immigrants. So it's important that we're addressing all the needs of their family. Child safety has everything to do with family structure, and that is a unique family structure that we run into. A lot of caseworkers run into this, but I don't think they know the importance of it. One, because they're working through a language line to service these families, and there's a sense of disconnect that's not made. Perhaps when you don't speak their language, the family may not feel understood. They may not feel like they're being related to. They're just a number in the system. But I speak Spanish, so I get a lot of cases where families are immigrants and they have citizen children or children that are not citizens, and I'm able to help them in that way. So there should be an immigration specialist, I believe, that makes intentional efforts to partner with local resources. Also, if there's legal interventions, there should be a way to, or the parents have the same rights that American parents have when there's a legal intervention. However, if a parent is detained, there's certain judicial laws that don't allow children to see their parents like we do normal parents who aren't citizens. They're allowed visitations once a week, but we can't take children to jails to visit their parents, and that's hard. Uh, there must be collaboration with local detention centers or local policymakers to be able to make them to keep that parent-child relationship alive, which is good for the child and their development. So a different approach that we would need because it's so early. There's not a lot of research being done on immigration and mixed citizenship families. There's some, but there's not a lot of statistical data. I think the best approach to do this is to get research within the child welfare system, see how big this problem is, how many children are being affected, especially in Texas. There's a lot of Hispanics, there's a lot of immigration here in the state of Texas. So I bet to say that is a need that we don't recognize is an actual need. So there's after research is made and we have enough statistical data, we know that we can present that information to local legislature, policy, make policy changes within the system of child protective services, perhaps implement those specialists, and then present that to local government and law enforcement to be able to do something and enforce those policies on a larger scale. In conclusion, there is a negative stigma on a national level on immigrants, and there's problems that arise, unique problems to mixed status families. Children of undocumented immigrant parents experience social isolation, behavioral problems sometimes, and the parents can be exploited in many ways, and it makes them a very vulnerable population. There's a lot of policies and laws that need to be changed to address these needs and better serve these families. So more attention needs to be drawn to it. And in this appendix, I have a local, somewhat a map that shows different places in the Waco area that service these families regardless of their citizenship status or service the children. I really appreciate you guys listening to my presentation. I hope that you have a great day and that we learned a lot about mixed status citizen families. You have a good one.